Do you know what was the ship originally built and used for prior to being refit for scientific research?
Research, still.
Yeah, it was still for research. It was the Alexander von Humboldt, built in 1967, and was East Germany, I think.
Yep.
And how fast can this boat go?
Max speeds is a little different from what's good for the engines. So typically cruising speed for us with all of our gear on board and keeping the engine happy is between 10 and 12 knots.
And what is the range of the ROV? I mean, how far can it go without disconnecting? How long the wire is, I guess, right?
Yeah, Mike, what were you saying? We have about...
Yeah, the wire is a little
4,000.
over 4 kilometers right now.
But
Yeah.
you can't. It's not like you can move 4 kilometers away from the boat in
No.
shallow water. You,
Because that's like with depth.
yeah,
too.
that's depth.
Yeah.
Herc can only move what, about 20 meters from Argus, or is it 30?
Hook is like 32, 34 meters from Argus,
Yeah.
and he can't really, he can pull Argus around a little bit, but it's not a good way to do ops.
Yeah, so it's
really,
a small radius, really,
yeah.
that the RVs can move around, and there is no disconnecting underwater. It's not like you can go and then they remain connected.
Yeah, that'd be bad.
Yeah, some can, but not these.
It is not actually rough here. It is pretty calm. If you go to the quad channel on our website, you'll see one of the images. It's actually our camera showing how the ocean is right now.
So it's looking like we'll get to start our turn, and then we'll hand it off.
Yeah.
The Nautilus usually sees all sorts of cool things and animals underwater. This time you can check our channel 2. That's the camera that Argus has. And right now at this depth we haven't seen much besides pelagic sea cucumbers, which are pretty cool.
And
Purple
rocks.
sea cucumbers. And a lot of rocks. But next expedition we're going to be checking out the area around American Samoa, and we're going to be visiting unexplored regions from the National Marine Sanctuary of American Samoa and Pacific Remote Island Marine National Monument. So keep following us. You're going to see amazing things with us. What is the longest period of time you have been on the boat?
I did a close to 7 weeks in a row many
Whoa.
years ago.
That is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
How did that feel? 7 weeks in a row.
I knew it was going to be a long time, so I kind of like was just ready to be on board for a long time. But yeah,
You were mentally prepared for that.
Yeah, I was, but it does become very small. But fortunately, that wasn't out at sea for 7 weeks straight. Like we had some port calls like in Istanbul and stuff, so we did get off the boat periodically. But I was living on the boat for almost 7 weeks, I think, 6.5 or so.
Wow.
That's a good one. What's everyone's longest continuous time underway?
Under continuous, it's just a couple of weeks. I don't know the exact number.
Without a port call.
See, most of my longer stints were in the Mediterranean, where port calls were quite easy.
I'm pretty sure I did 8 weeks without a port call.
Oh.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I think mine was the Honolulu to Samoa.
Yeah, I believe that was my same
I
too.
think I did just under a month.
That was that was like a little over 2 weeks or something?
I've never been on a ship big enough to hold enough food to go 8 weeks.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah, I've done only 2
Cheating
weeks.
from my start in ROV was industry stuff, so I'd have these like big giant drill ship
Yeah.
that gets resupplied. It doesn't go anywhere that gets
Yeah.
supplies, right?
I mean, that's like how aircraft carriers stay underway for so long as they get airdropped all their supplies.
So
That
we
would
are
imply
now
they have some place for aircraft to land.
Yeah.
we are not a little north of American Samoa. You can check that on a map. It's closer to Australia.
Yeah, no, when I say airdrop, I mean they land and then give it to them.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Yeah, oh, nowhere to set down. Guess we'll just drop it from here.
I don't know where we're gonna land,
So it
guys.
smashes
Gallons of food
the
smashing on the
cabbage and yogurt everywhere.
Why do you think it would be all cabbage and yogurt?
That's all it is.
Okay.
No, if I had to guess everything that they were getting airdropped, if it's anything similar, it is a lot of chicken. Egg rolls seem very common, able to be like warmed up. Like cans and cans of vegetables that no one eats.
Well, they have to be prepared to like dig into that if they don't get supplies
Yeah.
at some point. Can you imagine the number of cans you have to open to feed a crew of an aircraft carrier?
Oh, I'm pretty sure they have multiple galleys and.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, like,
nest decks.
Just
They
for
probably
one.
have those mega cans
Yeah,
too.
it's huge.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, they have to have multiple galleys.
yeah. It's literally like full, multiple
Yeah.
restaurants. It's a cruise ship. Just imagine instead of having fun, you're in the Navy.
Now I really want an egg roll.
Yeah.
Thanks for saying that.
Are these stretchy rocks unique to this area of the Pacific?
Are what?
They're asking about if these rocks are unique to this
The
area.
rocks.
I don't think so.
No, well, I mean, each volcano has a different geochemical signature. So it's a volcanic rock. It's probably similar to the Hawaiian island rock, but it will have its own specific geochemical signature that's from the magma chamber that the lava came from, which has to do with how the magma, like what rocks melted into the magma, and also how it cooled. So the crystallization rates can affect what like trace elements are pulled into it or remain in the melted part that comes up. So the Samoan rocks probably have a different geochemical signature than the Hawaiian rocks, but they're similar igneous volcanic rocks.
What is the coolest thing you've seen? Well, I remember Steve
Ever?
mentioning
Ever?
the, I guess here in the
Ever.
Nautilus. And I remember Steve mentioning the octopus garden.
Yeah, the thousands of brooding octopuses that were sitting on
What?
their eggs
Oh my God.
over what looked like seeps in the ocean floor.
When was that?
That was
2 years ago?
last year. That was actually
Last
in
year?
November, I
I
think.
never saw that. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
And it was in the Monterey Bay National
Wow.
Marine Sanctuary. I think it was around 3,200 meters of depth.
They're going
And
back there, right?
Yeah, it's just
I think
crazy
next year.
lines of octopuses, like
And where was that?
the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
They have a highlight video of that on their Nautilus YouTube channel.
Yes.
I'll have to
Exactly.
find
So
it.
if
That sounds awesome.
you look for us in YouTube Nautilus Live in Monterey Bay, you can see that.
That was my first dive ever.
That's so
Oh wow,
great.
really? That's
That's so
some
great.
find on your first dive. One of the cool things that we saw, we were mapping a feature off of Turkey, and we saw a leopard shark swimming by with an octopus in its mouth, and the tentacles were all like writhing around it. It was pretty cool.
That's cool.
That's super cool.
I'm trying to think because it's limited to the last month.
Yep.
Huh. I don't know. I mean, it wasn't on a dive, but I gotta say, when you're processing some of the multi-beam data, and you really see some of the like we just randomly are driving on a track trying to fill gaps, and some of the stuff that you just drive over and map is really incredible. Like what's just hidden under the water. But if I had to say coolest thing on a dive, I don't know, Mike, what was cool on the dive?
Ones that we've done?
Yeah.
There's
I mean, like,
propulsion sea cucumbers.
Yeah, the great quality video we got of the sea cucumbers.
I mean, yeah, that was, let's say, yeah, that was, like, funny, but...
Some of the sponge and corals that we saw were really, some of those were, like, pretty exceptional.
Oh yeah, that like with the shrimp inside those corals that had like the netting over
The
top.
glass sponges and
Yeah, event
stuff,
sponges,
yeah.
When we were off of California, we really liked seeing those. I hear they're called like very small orange octopuses. I think were they the Dumbo octopuses?
Oh yeah.
They're just like, and it made one of the Nautilus patches one year.
Yeah.
They were just like and they didn't look, you couldn't tell how big they were, but then like when we got the lasers on them, they're just like 5 centimeters.
Yeah, they're tiny.
They're really
They, the other
So
watches
cute.
saw some. We didn't get to see any last cruise. But, yeah, I mean, it's not like I didn't see anything cool. It's just I'm unfortunately comparing it to everything that, you know, you've seen Nautilus, like, come across. And it's really hard to pick out one thing for my 3 weeks after 10 years of exploration.
Well, yes, there are some specific parts of the ocean that have different properties, such as salinity, temperature, pressure. So, of course, yeah, that can cause life to be different and behave differently. Yeah, you're right. That's a great question. And how big is Argus?
Bigger than a bread box.
Bigger than a bread box.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe
Like,
3 meters long
yeah, probably about, and
by,
a little over a meter tall, a meter and a half tall.
yeah.
A solid rectangular prism
Mm-hmm.
with some
Sea brick.
pointy nose bits.
Yeah.
Those are all technical terms. You can quote me on that.
Stabby bits. That's what
Stabby bits.
British person.
Well, they're not that sharp.
Right.
They're just triangular in shape. Yeah, what was that? Someone described like an urchin like that. They're like, oh, look at that squishy thing with the stabby bits.
Yeah, were they British?
I don't know.
Hello to the people in Germany. Thanks for coming back again. Does this vessel has an autopilot, do you know?
I believe it should with the advanced technology that we have. I mean, yeah, I know it does, but it depends on what you consider autopilot. Typically for a ship, autopilot is just auto heading. So it'll maintain the direction the ship is pointing while it is driving. And then certainly on our dynamic positioning system, the DP, if you tell it to go a direction, it'll continue going that direction as long as you tell it to. So yes, its ability to program something in, like go this far this way and this far this way, I'm not 100% sure on, but we really don't have a huge use for that. You don't want to rely too much on autopilot on a ship. It's the same reason why people are a little wary about self-driving cars, and why we always keep someone on the bridge on watch 24/7. So that there's always someone to make sure the system is doing what it's supposed to.
Thank you. And the biggest creature that we've seen on camera was that sperm whale, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you guys are interested, you can check out our website, nautiluslive.org, and see all the cool stuff that we've been seeing in the last years during expeditions. This specific expedition on the search of the Samoan Clipper flying boat that belonged to the Pan American Airways fleet and that disappeared on January 11, 1938. This specific expedition started 3 days ago, and what you're seeing in channel 1 is the return from our side scan sonar. We are scanning the area where it was last reported and trying to find some interesting points to dive later on. Yeah, we're not tired of your questions. Thanks for keeping asking questions. You're the best campers ever, asking so many
Is it
questions.
the camp that's asking?
Maybe not all of them, but most of the questions I
That's cool.
assume are from the campers.
Um,
Right now we're working only with Argus, and if you go to channel 2 in our website, you're going to see what Argus camera is showing, which is a lot of like muddy sediment and some rocks, and once in a while here and there we have some very interesting purple sea cucumbers and little crustaceans. What can we bring on the boat for the trip? Well, our personal belongings, some toiletries,
Snacks.
Nothing.
snacks.
It's an adventure, right? You just come out with the clothes on your back and see what happens. That's a lie. I have like 3 huge bags.
Yeah, you came with everything you own, pretty much.
Yeah, because you get pretty good at putting all of your belongings in like 2 bags, for especially like travel in the military. And so I was on a ship before this, so I had no time to dump anything. So I brought all of my uniforms and a full bag of everything else you need, of civilian clothes, toiletries, everything that Valeria was listing off there, and then just a backpack. So, yeah, bring whatever you want, but the lighter you pack, the easier it is.
Yeah.
And the easier on your cabin mate.
Oh yeah, you only have so much
Totally.
storage space.
You're lucky
on
that
board.
your stuff made it. We all brought only well, Devin brought some check things, but the rest of us brought only carry-ons because we were afraid of like some of the small flights, like losing baggage. But none of us did, which is nice.
Yeah, I was really happy that I didn't, because I switched airlines because I went, what'd I go, Pensacola, Atlanta, LA, Hawaii, and I switched airlines in the middle there. And so that's prime time for losing your bags.
And what do we eat here? Well, we have a very creative couple of people in the kitchen, so we have plenty of food, very varied, lots of veggies and fruits and all sorts of cool stuff.
Snack time.
Yeah.
Every day at 3. Except when there's a birthday, and then we get birthday cake in the evening.
There hasn't been any of those though.
Oh, that the person that said happy birthday and then said it was their birthday too in Australia. Well, now it's no longer their birthday there, but it's their birthday now for us.
Right.
On the 18th. So happy birthday to that person. And everyone else whose birthday is today, because there's more than just them.
I'm shocked that that was only a day ago.
It wasn't even a full day.
No.
That was like 12 hours ago.
So right now Argus is hovering between 15 and 20 meters above the seafloor. And they're asking about Rebecca. What does the data logger do if there's nothing to log?
Well, even though we're not doing a normal dive with Hercules, there is plenty of data to log, even though it doesn't, maybe if they're looking at my notes, I'm not typing too much now. But as the data logger...
But you're spelling what you type correctly.
I am double checking that now before it gets sent out. But as the data logger, I work with the science team and everyone else in the control room, especially now for identifying targets that come up on the side scan sonar. Right now we're in a pretty flat area, so there hasn't been too much of that going on. And we're also getting better at, I think, figuring out what's rock and what's a somewhat more interesting target. So as time has gone on, the number of frequency of targets has decreased. But if we do identify a target, I record notes such as the direction the ship is heading, coordinates, a description, which file name it's saved under, both electronically and on paper. I also have a camera system, so anything that shows up in Argus that's interesting, whether it's even an unknown fish or an interesting rock feature that we can use to compare to the side scan sonar data, I can take an image of that and that gets saved. I also take notes on where the ship position is, what Argus is doing, if there's any technical difficulties, things like that. So if something does go wrong, we can later go look back at the notes and troubleshoot and try and figure out what went wrong. But yeah, still plenty to do even without Hercules on board, so.
Just as you were saying that, I thought about it for a minute, and I was thinking of, like, you know, you're full on typing, you're clicking around and everything, like the amount of buttons that you're pushing, and I thought about it, and I realized I could get through an entire watch and only press 2 buttons.
I mean, yeah.
Left click on the mouse and the talking to the bridge.
Yep. But yeah, I'm scrolling through about 4 different screens depending on what type of data I want to look at, looking up stuff on the internet.
And speaking of internet, we don't have phone service, but we do have internet, and we have a phone for emergency calls and to call our families too.
Don't tell my parents that.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. No, we can't make calls.
It's for emergency use only.
There's no way they can contact me.
And
no,
are you
they
scared?
know that they could FaceTime audio, like, if they need to.
Yeah, I told my parents you could do Wi-Fi calling, and they go, we can't do that from our phone. Okay. Thanks for trying, guys.
Okay, bye. They can, they just don't know how, is the answer.
And for the question, are you scared? Well, we are more excited than scared, I think, right?
Are we scared? What?
Scared
About
of
what?
Being at sea?
I guess.
No.
No,
There's
we're
an island not that far away, you know.
I could swim, you know? It's only 12 miles.
There are a lot of people who are very well trained for emergency situations on board. The captain and the entire crew. I presume our Coast Guard cadet is.
Yes, I do have training for such situations, but on board Nautilus, the permanent crew is definitely the resident experts.
And then some of the people here have had STCW sea survival training, including Dee Dee and I from Search. We went through the full STCW, which is sea survival, so like immersion suit and life raft and life jacket training in a pool, as well as classroom, and also basic firefighting, practical. And so we did that because to work offshore on certain vessels, you have to actually be a merchant marine, which is strange. So we actually both have a merchant marine credential now. So we went through all that training last year.
It's fun training.
Yeah, it's really fun actually. The firefighting training was in Fort Lauderdale in June, so it was like 97 degrees out.
And you're wearing all of the gear, SCBA and everything.
All of that, and then we had to walk into fires, which were set on purpose in a they have a set that they do this on, and so yeah, we got very very warm. It was really fun.
Yeah, no. So for everyone else at home, SCBA is just scuba without the U for underwater. Self-contained breathing apparatus.
Thanks, Jacques Cousteau.
Yeah, all he really did was add the U.
Scuba. Well,
I could have done that.
So that already existed when he invented scuba, or he invented scuba and then they made that from it?
Yeah, I have no idea.
So you don't know that
he also did a lot of extra work with the actual gear that it takes to make it underwater. Yeah. You can't just take firefighting equipment underwater.
You might be able to, actually. I don't know.
I mean, it depends on how airtight a seal you got, I guess.
Hello, shrimp.
Yeah, I mean, there's full face masks that are for diving that are basically the same thing.
Yeah.
I've done those. Are pretty fun.
I do know. My dad is a firefighter, but he's retired. And there was at one point, I believe they jumped into the water with full gear, and realized they could still swim with full gear. You know, you think about getting weighed down with that stuff. I don't think they had a tank on. I don't know what a practical use you'd need that for.
Yeah.
But it can be done.
To put out a fire that's on you?
Yeah,
I mean, that you're wearing flame retardant clothes.
If you're nearby water, usually you just get sprayed with a hose if for some reason your flame retardant gear catches on fire. But then you immediately have to exit or be kept wet because you will actually steam to death if you get wet and then stay near the fire.
Yeah, that'd be no good.
It's like those vegetables where you put a little water in it and then put it in the microwave. So yeah, you either have to be kept cool by being sprayed by the hose or leave the environment.
One of my favorite parts of the firefighting training was when they had us practice with the hose on the gas fire that they'll have, which means you can never put it out. One of the settings on the hose is that big shield it puts up. So they had two
the cone?
Yeah, the cone. So they had two teams, and one would fight the fire while the other would put the shield up. And so they would call it Team 1, Captain America.
Oh, yeah.
And then, all right, Team 2, Captain America. Team 1, fight the fire. And they called that setting Captain America. Really funny. But it really works. Not only, it just completely blocks that flow of heat towards you, which is really cool. I didn't know the fire hose. That was one of the settings of fire hoses.
Yeah, a lot of times for those types of gas fires, there's no way to directly fight it.
Right.
So one of the best tactics is just to put mist in the air to cool the entire room below the ignition temperature.
Yeah.
And then obviously try to get someone to secure the gas line.
There's an amazing documentary called Fires of Kuwait, which is about the international, a bunch of nations that came together to try to put out these oil well fires that were set by, I think it was Saddam Hussein's
in the 90s,
army when they left Kuwait.
Yeah, he lit all of them on fire, yeah.
And it's absolutely fascinating. It's got amazing sound design. It's an IMAX film.
Cool. What's it called?
Fires of Kuwait.
Fires of Kuwait. That's pretty descriptive.
Yeah, and like the different countries come with different tactics, and like I just remember the Russian one was like putting water cannons on tanks.
And driving them right up there.
Yeah, and then like other,
That's
there's
incredible.
some guys from Texas that came with dynamite to like.
Well, that makes sense.
Because if you can create a vacuum at the
ignition
source,
point,
it could temporarily cut off the
connection.
The connection and put out the fire.
Cut the stream.
If you've seen There Will Be Blood, they do something similar, I think.
Yeah.
In that film.
That's cool.
It's really cool. You should
We
check it out.
do a lot of militaries do it, but my knowledge base being the Coast Guard, we do a lot of cross training with other Coast Guards and navies, because it's crazy. We've developed our practices, but you get some outside examples, and everyone does it a little differently. So it's really cool to see how certain countries run their operations. We don't have any tanks in the Coast Guard, though. Something about them not floating too well.
No, we haven't found any tardigrades yet.
That's, yeah.
We haven't been zooming in enough, I don't think.
Even if we got any down here, there's definitely not the right zoom for that.
Yeah, totally.
We do have a microscope on board, though, right?
So
I believe we do.
So, I mean, technically, we could find them, but...
At one point, there was a microscope. I don't know if that...
Yeah, I know there was. I don't know if it still is.
Have you guys ever seen a giant squid here in the Nautilus?
No.
Very few people have.
No.
I saw the one on display in the museum in Wellington.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
That doesn't count.
Is it
That's crazy.
like in ethanol or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Wow.
But it's just massive.
Jeez.
Something
Yeah.
to see for sure.
I didn't know that there even was one on display.
I think there might be bits of one at the
Bits of one.
Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. I think it's just like a tentacle or something, though.
Yeah, well, I mean, usually the way that people find them is they get caught up in like deep sea trawling nets or something.
Yeah.
So they're not exactly in the best shape by the time they
Or they just washed ashore and they're already
come
rotting.
out. Oh yeah, just dead.
Yeah, the one in Wellington is good, and the exhibit has a bunch of video of how they recovered it and stuff.
That's cool.
Didn't they find like they got one alive or something like that? Like I feel like I remember them actually like finally getting a live giant squid.
Yeah, I don't know about I can't
On
remember the
camera?
Wellington one. It is very intact though.
Do you mean like capturing one or getting one on camera?
That's a solid question. I think
There was
like capturing one alive.
they just saw one in the Gulf of Mexico, right? There was a research ship that captured a live one on
Was
video.
that the lure one?
Yes, I believe so.
You know what was interesting? When I was in the Gulf on my other ship earlier this summer, we saw a ship on the horizon that looked really kind of interesting. A different setup, definitely not a fishing vessel. So we looked on AIS to see what the description was, and it was research ship. And it was it the University of Mississippi's? That's like...
Oh, Lumcon the Pelican?
Yeah. And it was really funny because it's like they were doing some of the same work that we're doing.
And for the question, yeah, there is a difference between the giant squid and the colossal squid. So the giant squid is bigger, but the colossal squid has a bigger body and it weighs a couple of 100 kilograms
Interesting.
more than the giant squid.
So does the giant squid just have longer tentacles?
Yeah, longer.
Gotcha.
It's a very serene sunset out there. Or sunrise.
Yeah, it's not very dramatic.
Obviously,
What day is it?
Obviously, I meant the other one. I had a 50-50 chance and I ruined it.
Hey, it's sunset for someone.
Yes. See, where is sunset's
nice.
probably like in Europe now?
don't know.
So
Close to. Maybe like Eastern Europe sunset.
what are we, plus 11 right now? So
Well,
it'd be about
UTC is in Europe, so it's 6 11.
6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah,
like
just
Fr-
about
France, Germany.
somewhere in Europe.
Yeah, like
Yep, it's in Eastern Europe
Yeah.
right now.
sweet.
I'm looking at this line here, and
Which
that's where the sun set would
also
be.
means it's also a good
Yeah,
line
because
in
if we're
Africa
out here,
too.
the sunrise
Yeah.
over here, you know.
Yep, like
See the line?
middle
The night
Africa.
and day
Middle
line?
Africa,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just remember when I took geography, I felt like Europe was a lot easier because it was so compact. Africa is just such a massive continent.
It's huge, and I've never set foot on it, which I want to.
Yeah, definitely.
I would love
need
to go to Egypt, but it's not the safest right now.
Yeah.
I would really love to though.
Yeah, that would be so great.
I'm not actually allowed to go to any areas that are currently engaged in any type of conflict.
Yeah, that makes sense. You'd be a nice hostage.
Yeah, you have to ask, even on your personal time before you go, and they do a whole search about the area and what's going on at the time, and talk to the State Department.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Come
Well,
back
because
to
also
you
you don't want it to look like you're representing the Coast Guard, even if you're there on your
Yeah,
personal
exactly.
time.
Like,
it could be.
There's a
Yeah.
huge thing about getting involved, like in protests.
Yeah.
You can't, or you're not supposed to wear your uniform to any protests.
Well, yeah, that would be very bad.
Yeah, because you can participate, but you can't have any
Are you saying domestically as well?
connection domestically as well, because you're encouraged to support your beliefs. I can go to protests if I would like. I just cannot connect the Coast Guard. I do not speak for the entire Coast Guard and its values. I only try to represent it, so it would be misrepresenting the Coast Guard for me to say that they supported something just because I supported it. Yeah, I think it's part of the, what is it called, the Hatch Act. And a lot of times people do. They'll wear like their old uniforms to protest to try to get support, but you're really not supposed to.
So does it still apply once you're out of military service?
Once you're out of the service, it still technically applies. I just don't think you can be held to UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So people get away with it.
Enjoy your sunset, people in Europe. Yeah, that's so great. It does get hot on deck when there's no wind. Even with wind,
It's still a warm breeze.
It's warm. It's really nice. So do all other ships doing this kind of work, like the Okeanos, share their work with us?
Okeanos does, but not all ships do.
So, no, Okeanos and Nautilus are both, well, Nautilus partially and Okeanos are both funded by the NOAA's Office of Ocean Exploration and Research, and all that data is publicly available. So, for example, this greenish blue base map that we have on HYPACK is from an Okeanos survey, and we were able to access that. They did the survey for us because Russ and Airsea Heritage Foundation requested the area, and they were out here, and it was part of the workshop that we did. So they did the survey for it, and then we had access to that data, but it's also publicly available on NOAA's Ocean Explorer website. The Nautilus data is also available to some extent on the NCEI database, and I forget what that stands for, but it's a multi-beam bathymetry database. So, yeah, that data is publicly available. Other ships of exploration, like ones that are privately owned, like the Falcor or the Alucia, are, they make public what they want to, so it's different.
So right now we have the same 58 targets.
Yep.
Yep. What scientific equipment do we have on board? Oh gosh, the list is very long. We have the sonar, we have, oh, I don't know, we have,
We technically only have one ROV on board.
what was that? I
No,
can't hear
we
you.
have Little
really.
Herc too.
Yeah, we have 2 on board.
Oh yeah,
right
we
now.
have 2. But
So
Argus is in the water.
There's 3 ROVs on board. There's the
Mm-hmm.
multi-beam, the side scan, a bunch of sector scanning sonars. There's the sub-bottom. There's don't we have just a single beam, like depth finder as well?
Yeah, I think so, for like use on the bridge.
There's a whole bunch of sensors, like oxygen, conductivity, temperature, depth. We have sampling equipment, so there's like a suction sampler on Herc. There's push core tubes. There's there's a whole variety of
Niskin
things.
bottles.
Niskin bottles, yeah.
Everything in the wet lab.
Yep.
Long tongs.
Maybe long tongs.
Negative 80 freezer, negative 20 freezer,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
fridge,
Maybe a microscope.
ethanol, maybe
Potentially
microscope,
microscope. We don't remember.
lots of plastic bags, jars,
of
measuring equipment,
Plastic
Plastic bags
cameras,
for sure.
are definitely scientific
an
equipment.
entire computer lab.
Yeah, an entire like data engineering network that Justin runs and manages. So there's a lot of automated data being both processed and backed up at all times. Yeah, lots of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, we can give you a short summary. So this is the 3rd day on the Nautilus expedition NA111 on the search of the Pan American flying boat Samoan Clipper that was reported for the last time on January 11, 1938, before crashing about 12 miles north of Pago Pago in American Samoa. We've been scanning the area where it was last reported using a side scan sonar that you can see on our channel 1. You'll see the return of our high frequency and low frequency sonars. In channel 2 you can see what our ROV Argus camera is showing us, which is the bottom of the ocean right now. Argus is at 3,000 meters depth and hovering about 15-20 meters above the seafloor.
Going up a good ridge
Yeah,
here.
it's pretty steep.
And right now we have 58 possible targets for further exploration later on.
So we have 58 log targets, but only a handful of those are ones that we'll be looking at later on, just to manage expectations.
Oh yeah, okay. You're right.
That's right, I'd rather have a couple good targets than look at all 58.
Yeah, for sure.
Be repeatedly disappointed by the interestingly shaped rocks.
How far does this line extend?
How much further?
Yeah.
Just under 700 meters. We got about a little under half an hour to go.
Cool.
For the ship to go. Argus
Yeah.
is, I don't know, 720.
But we're going past the initial grid line, right?
Yeah, we're already past
Right there.
the lines that we were doing the other
Got
day.
it.
Yeah, weather right now, it looks pretty nice. We don't have a lot of wind, right, Chris?
No, we are at 1.8 knots of wind.
Mm.
It's very nice out there.
Yeah, it's really nice. And our targets are identified by our scientific team based on the shape and the return of the signal from the sonar. We do not plan bringing up any artifacts if we find the plane. Not at least that I know. Perhaps just a little sample, if any, but not really.
Yeah, no, I think current plan is leave everything as we find it, unless there's a game day decision made.
Yeah, typically that's the case. And as of right now, we're probably going to be visually identifying with Argus just because of the time it would take to put Hercules on. So Argus doesn't have sampling capabilities anyway. But yeah, we typically would approach a site with the intention of not disturbing it, especially because it's a grave site. So recovery of artifacts would be a completely different sort of approach and justification, and there needs to be a scientific reason to do so.
And for the people following us, if you go to the quad, you can actually see the sunrise on this side of the world. In American Samoa, this is how the sunrise looks like. We have 16 countries so far following us, or people from 16 different countries that show in our map. Thanks to all the people that are following us.
16 entire countries. Every single person in the country is here.
Yeah, that's a lot. That would be so great to have so many followers that are interested in science and exploration and discovery.
Can figure out a way to hijack some news feeds. That's a lie. I have no idea how that would even work.
And this is so cool. For the first
I'm not even
time,
sure
we
what we're
have
talking about.
more people from Germany than from the United Kingdom. It is usually the United States and then the United Kingdom and then all the rest of the countries. Right now we have Germany in the second
Go
place.
Germany.
Go Germany.
We made any bingo progress?
Don't think so.
No,
since
not
the
in a
first
while.
hour.
We came on strong and then did nothing.
We
We still
decided-
need not a sea cucumber, not a rock bigger than a breadbasket. And then we'll win.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
It's not looking too promising.
I guess that technically also goes under find plane.
Yeah.
So we could get 2 in that row.
Yeah.
I guess technically we kind of did that. So like,
I'm not even sure I remember how to play bingo.
yeah, we're not like,
It's
Just
pretty
have to get 5
complicated.
in
So
a row.
it's not, it technically isn't the traditional way. Traditional way being, you know, rolling around the balls and saying, you know, like B2.
Yeah, this is much better.
Actually, when we were in Pongo Pongo on, was it Friday night?
There was a bingo game.
Yeah, there was
a
multiple.
few bingo games.
Like
it's like the thing
every
to do.
village like had their own like bingo going. It was very popular. It was really it was good. We thought about stopping in.
Yeah, it would have been cool to check out.
My grandmother used to go to bingo every week.
Mike, do you know if we find a Samoan clipper, if a memorial plaque will be placed in the future there? Have you heard any plans about that?
No, there's not a memorial plaque. We'd probably say some words on deck, but we wouldn't leave anything at the site.
Is this site part of the protected area?
I'm not sure what the extents are, but I don't believe so.
Okay.
If they're talking about the marine sanctuary that we were doing our last cruise in, we were outside of that area. And then we're just slightly outside of, what is it, 3 miles off Samoa is considered territorial waters?
Yeah, that's right.
Usually the EEZ or exclusive economic zone goes further. But that's where they made the cutoff, so we're slightly outside of that.
We have a question about if there's a way to follow Nautilus with Google Earth Live by periodically downloading GIS data or other data for Google Earth.
Technically, not through that way. It's,
maybe not.
It'd be a hard time for real-time GIS. But if it's getting accurate pings, technically you can do an AIS tracker. Every large ship has AIS, which sends a ping out with its location. That being said, a lot of the websites sometimes are bad at updating it. Last time I checked, we were still in San Diego. But sometimes that's a way of tracking it. But we're not really moving right now. So we're not just put a point 12 miles north of American Samoa, and there we are.
Somewhere in a 4 square nautical mile box.
It's some arbitrary box that we drew around our target area. But yeah, and then if you look at the cruise plan that has all the points that we're hitting and the different dates that we're going to hit it, usually there's not too much lollygagging. Transits are straight lines unless there's mapping to be done in between. And then once we get there, we'll sit off just about where the little star is on the image that Nautilus has of where we'll be focusing the dives. Yeah, I'm sure there is some way to put location information in, kind of create a track.
Thanks to the people that are following us from all over the world, especially the ones that are following us for several days on this search for the Samoan clipper. Every time I say Samoan clipper and remember that it's a flying boat, I feel like it's amazing.
Yeah.
A flying boat.
Well,
sounds poetic.
Yeah, because you look at it and it's like, your immediate thought is floating plane. But really it was like the primary mode of transport before it was ships. So it was just taking the primary mode and moving it to the air. So flying boat.
Yeah.
It's kind of like there's the jetliner, the Airbus.
Yeah.
Cool. We have a couple of followers suggested that for tracking, you could use marinetrack.com.
Yeah, that's one of those AIS sites I was talking about.
Also, I was thinking about the Global Fishing Watch. They have a pretty neat map about of the fishing fleet all over the world, and for sure, even if this is not a fishing boat, it would show up there.
If it uses the same thing, AIS tracking.
Exactly. I'm actually looking at it right now, and probably will show up.
Yeah, AIS is actually a really good design. It keeps helps keep ships from hitting each other at night. When you look at radar and you see the little blips, it's hard to interpret. Is it land? Is it a ship? Like what's going on there? Is it a big wave? But it will overlay on your radar to tell you the ship. Ships will update their information, what port they're coming from, what port they're going to, their course, their speed, what they're carrying. And the name of the vessel. So it makes it really easy for vessels to contact each other in the middle of the ocean and stay safe.
They say it's showing that we are leaving Honolulu right now.
Oh, it's catching up, but it's not quite there yet.
Not quite there yet.
Yeah, that was a couple weeks ago.
My phone still thinks I'm in Honolulu for some reason.
It
gives me Honolulu weather every day.
We were in, I don't know what happened, but at some point, I think it was when we crossed this little outcrop of the date line. It's not a perfectly straight line, it wiggles a little bit. And we crossed just a corner of it. And I went to set my alarm, and it completely messed it all up because my phone was connected to the Wi-Fi and changed time zones and everything. So my alarm did not go off when I wanted it to, and it was a mess.
So are we expecting a mostly intact wreck? Well, not really.